Hi, welcome to chapter 5 of Pippi in the South Seas. This chapter is called Pippi Gets a Letter. Oh, she's being naughty again. She's standing on a chair. She's a pretty naughty little girl. Good thing she's pretend and people don't actually do that, right? Okay, chapter 5. Pippi gets a letter. The day went by and all of a sudden it was autumn or fall. Remember, it's fall right now, and here's the sign for fall. It's like a tree with the leaves falling. All right. And all of a sudden it was autumn. First autumn, then winter. A long, cold winter that seemed as if it would never end. Because Pippi lives in Sweden, which has a climate a lot like Minnesota. So they have a long winter there too. Okay, Tommy and Annika were very busy at school, and with every day that went by, they felt more and more tired and had a harder time getting up in the morning. Mrs. Settergren, their mother, began to be really worried about their paleness and their lack of appetite. On top of everything, both of them suddenly caught the measles and had to stay in their beds for a couple of weeks. It would have been 2 very dreary weeks indeed if Pippi hadn't come and done tricks outside their window every day. The doctor had forbidden her to actually go into their room because measles are catching or contagious. And Pippi obeyed, although she said she would undertake to crack 1 or 2 billion measles microbes between her fingernails during the course of an afternoon. But no one had forbidden her to do tricks outside of their window. The children's room was on the 2nd floor, and Pippi had raised a ladder to their window. It was very exciting for Tommy and Annika to lie in their beds and try to guess how Pippi would look when she appeared on the ladder, because she never looked the same 2 days in a row. Sometimes she would be dressed as a chimney sweep, sometimes as a ghost in a white sheet, and sometimes she appeared as a witch. Then she would act amusing skits outside of their window, playing all the parts herself. Now and then she did acrobatics on the stepladder. And what acrobatics she did! She would stand on the topmost rung and let the ladder sway back and forth until Tommy and Annika screamed in terror because it looked as if she would come crashing down at any moment. But she never did. And when she was going to climb down again, she always went head first, just so that would be more amusing for Tommy and Annika to watch. Every day she went to town to buy apples and oranges and candy, and she put everything into a basket and attached it to a very long string. Then Mr. Nielsen climbed up with the string to Tommy, who opened the window and hoisted up the basket. Sometimes Mr. Nielsen would also bring letters from Pippi when she was busy and couldn't come herself. But that didn't happen often because Pippi was on the ladder practically all the time. Oh, I need a sip of water or coffee. Now sometimes she pressed her nose against the window pane and turned her eyelids inside out and made terrible, scary faces. She said to Tommy and Annika that she would give each of them a gold coin if they could keep from laughing at her. But of course they couldn't. They laughed so hard they almost fell out of their beds sometimes. Gradually they became well again and were all allowed to get up. Well, oh, how pale and thin they looked. Pippi was sitting with them in their kitchen the first day they were up, watching them eat cereal. That is, they were supposed to be eating cereal, but they weren't doing very well at it. It made their mother terribly nervous to see them just sitting there and picking at it. "Children, eat your good cereal now," she said. Annika stirred hers around in the dish with her spoon a bit, but she knew that she just couldn't get any of it down. "Why do I have to eat it anyway?" she said, complaining. "How can you ask anything so stupid?" asked Pippi. "Of course you gotta eat your good cereal. If you don't eat your good cereal, then you won't grow up big and strong. And if you don't get big and strong, then you won't have the force to force your children, when you have some children, to eat their good cereal. No, Annika, that won't do. Nothing but the most terrible disorder in cereal eating would come of this if everyone talked like you." Tommy and Annika ate 2 spoonfuls of their good cereal each, and Pippi watched them with great sympathy. "You ought to go to sea for a while," she said, rocking back and forth on her chair on which she was sitting. "Then you would soon learn how to eat. I remember once when I was on my father's ship and Friftolf, one of our able-bodied seamen, suddenly one morning couldn't eat more than 7 plates of cereal. My father was beside himself with worry over his poor appetite. 'Friftol, old boy,' he said in a choking voice, 'I'm afraid you have a terrible consuming disease. It's best that you stay in your bunk today until you feel a little better and can eat normally. I'm come back to tuck you in and give you some strengthening medicine.' It's called medicine," said Annika, correcting. And Fridolf gathered and staggered himself to his bed, Pippi went on, because he was worried himself and wondered what sort of epidemic he could be having, since he was only able to eat 7 helpings of cereal. He was just lying there wondering whether he would live until evening when my father came with the medicine. A black, disgusting-looking medicine it was, but you could say what you wanted about it. It was strengthening, because when Fridolf swallowed the first spoonful, flames broke out of his mouth, and he let out a scream that shook the hop-toad from the stern to the bow and could be heard on ships within 50 miles radius. The cook still hadn't had a chance to clear away the breakfast dishes, and when Fridolf came steaming up into the galley, letting out piercing shrieks, he heaved himself down at the table and began eating the cereal and was howling with hunger even after his 15th plate. But then there was no more cereal left, and all the cook could do was stand and throw cold potatoes into Fridolf's mouth. As soon as it looked as if it was going to stop, Fridolf would let out an angry growl. "Argh!" And the cook realized that if he didn't want to be eaten up himself, all he could do was keep it up. But unfortunately, he only had a miserable 117 potatoes. And when he had thrown the last one into Fridolf's gullet, he quickly made a dash for the door and turned the lock. Then we all stood outside and peeked at Fridolf through the window. He was whining like a hungry child, and in quick succession he ate up the bread basket, the pitcher, and 15 plates. Then he attacked the table, He broke off all 4 legs, and he ate till the sawdust foamed around the corners of his mouth. But he only said that for asparagus. They had awfully woody taste. He seemed to think that the tabletop tasted better because he smacked his lips and he ate it and said that it was the best sandwich he had eaten since he was a child. But then my father felt that Fridolf was fully recovered from his consuming disease, and he went into him and he said that now he would have to try to control himself till lunch, which would be served in 2 hours, and then he would get mashed turnips with salt pork. "Oh, Captain," said Fridolf, wiping his mouth. "Please," he said with an eager, hungry look in his eye. "When is supper gonna be served, and why can't we have it a little earlier?" Pippi put her head to one side and looked at Tommy and Annika and their cereal plates. "As I said, you ought to go to sleep for a while, and then your poor appetites would be cured in a hurry." Just then the mailman walked by the Settergren house on his way to the Villa Villacula. He happened to see Pippi through the window and called out, "Pippi Longstockings, here is a letter for you." Pippi was astonished that she almost fell off her chair. "A letter? For me? A real letter? I mean, a real letter? I want to see it before I believe it." But it was a real letter. A letter with many strange stamps. "You read it, Tommy. You know how," said Pippi. And Tommy began. "My dear Pippalata," he read, "when you get this, you might as well go down to the harbor and start looking for the hop toad, because now I'm coming to get you and bring you here to Kurakuradut Island for a while. You ought at least to see the country where your father has become such a powerful king. It's really very nice here, and I think that you would like it and feel at home. My faithful subjects are also looking forward very much to see the Princess Pippalata, of whom they have heard so much. So there is nothing further to be said in the matter. You are coming, and this is my kingly and fatherly wish. A real big kiss and many fond regards from your old father, King Ephraim I. Longstocking, ruler of Kurakuradut Island." When Tommy had finished reading, you could have heard a pin drop in the kitchen. That's the end of chapter 5. I'll see you at chapter 6.